Hello, my friends. I am Adrienne Gold Davis, and I'm the Director of Experience and Engagement at Momentum. And it is a humbling privilege to serve as the host for this very special, emotional, and meaningful gathering. Because tonight, we are honoring Momentum's beloved community leader, Sharon Shenker, on the occasion of her Shloshim. Shloshim, which means 30, falls on the 30th day from the burial. Now, there are particular laws and customs when it comes to the practice and even the intensity of mourning within Jewish life. With the exception of mourning for one's parents, where it continues for a full 12 months, the mourning concludes after the mourning services on this 30th day. And we lost our beloved Sharon on January the 23rd. Now, it's traditional to mark the 30 days since her passing by reciting prayers and psalms, Tehillim, and to give charity in the merit of her soul. Our Torah study has served to elevate and to bring merit to Sharon's soul. Sharon guided so many of us in our Jewish lives and in our learning. Her light, it's indistinguishable. And we keep her soul elevating by fanning the flames of the sparks that she lit within us. Tonight, Momentum's Founding Director Lori Palatnik will lead us in a conversation in her memory on the challenging reality of coping with loss and share Jewish wisdom on the soul, death, and the afterlife. Lori wrote a book with her husband, Rabbi Yaakov Palatnik, about this very topic, and it became a bestseller. And we just launched the audiobook version of it on remembermysoul.org. Thousands have benefited from this wisdom, and we hope that you will too. So please ask all of your questions in the chat. We hope to get to them all at the end, and Lori's going to try and answer each and every one of you. But before we bring Lori on, I'd like to introduce my friend and a definite role model and mentor for myself, Chana Heller. Chana is HLA's JWI director. Chana worked with Sharon for 17 years, and together they changed the Los Angeles Jewish landscape. They've helped inspire and transform hundreds of women from the LA area through that Momentum year-long journey. And Chana, well, she wanted to take a moment to say some words about Sharon. Please have a look right now.
In 1997, a Jewish college student wanted to check out a Jewish event on campus. But not knowing anyone, she didn't want to go alone. She asked her Jewish roommate to come along, but the roommate was not interested in Judaism or Jewish events. Finally, the reluctant roommate was cajoled into attending just long enough until her friend felt comfortable, and then she could leave. When they entered the event, they each received a raffle ticket. The prize was a free trip to Israel to be part of an HUK program called the Jerusalem Fellowships. It's kind of like Momentum, but for college students, only longer. Towards the end of the evening, when they drew the winner of the raffle, the reluctant roommate won. Her name was Sharon Shenker, and that trip changed her life. If there ever was an HP moment, a moment when the guiding hand of God is so evident, that raffle was it. Sharon's trip to Israel changed not only her life, it changed the lives of so many in England, in Los Angeles, and way beyond. Her reach and her impact was extraordinary. I was privileged to meet Sharon many years later. After she had immersed herself in Jewish learning, she worked for HUK, met and married her amazing husband, Rabbi Mati, and finally made her way to Los Angeles 17 years ago to work at HLA. I was the lucky one, the blessed one, who got to be her partner. It was love at first sight. I knew from the first walk we took together it was going to be a really amazing adventure with her. Sharon and I worked for a few years in the Young Professionals Division at HLA until one day we got a call from an old friend, Lori Palatnik, asking us if we were going to bring some moms on an Israel trip through her newly created JWRP, now Momentum. We said, Lori, we don't do moms. So the next year she called us back again saying, you're going to take moms on our trip this year, right? And we said, Lori, we told you, we don't do moms. And she said, well, you should. And then she gave us a laundry list of reasons why we should. And anybody who knows Lori knows it's very hard to say no to her. So that year we brought 18 moms to Israel. The next year we took an entire bus. And after that, we came back to LA and we said, that's it. Out with the young professionals, in with the moms. Sharon was co-founder and co-director of an entirely new division at HLA, the JWI, Jewish Women's Initiative, which is just for moms. And Sharon was all in. To date, we've taken almost 600 moms on the life-changing Momentum trip. And I attribute so much of our success in creating a vibrant community of moms in LA to Sharon. Who didn't want to be around Sharon? From the moment she enveloped you in her bear hug, you knew you were going to be loved. From the moment she asked you about your life, you knew you were not going to be judged. And from the moment you attended your first class with her, you knew you'd be coming back for more. Sharon was a master in making people feel special, wanted, and included. Sharon had a way of transmitting Jewish ideas and values, which was so easy to listen to and assimilate. She was a great storyteller. She loved taking women all around Jerusalem, showing them all the sights and sounds and tastes that she loved. Her love of Israel, the Jewish people, and Judaism was so palpable and it was so infectious. Sharon was also an incredible entertainer. Put her on the mic on a tour bus in Israel. She was in her element, dropping pearls of wisdom, telling the funniest jokes, and calling everybody up to the mic to share their inspiring moments of the day. I remember several times when we arrived in Israel, gathered everyone on the bus and pulled out of Ben Gurion Airport with such anticipation of the transformative experience ahead. And Sharon leaned over to me and whispered, Khan, we have the best job in the world. Even though Sharon was young enough to be my daughter, I never considered her anything but a peer. She had wisdom and insight into people way beyond her years. When she went back to school a few years ago to become a licensed therapist, I knew she had a great future in helping others navigate their struggles. I had occasion to see Sharon in action on one of our trips. One evening in Israel, as we were about to enter the hotel, a cab pulled up and 3 Israeli moms, ex-IDF officers who were part of our trip, spilled out looking shell-shocked. They had been at Machne Yehuda when gunshots were heard. And there were mobs of people trying to get out of the market, fearing the worst, but thankfully it was not a terrorist attack. But one of the women was clearly suffering from an anxiety attack. And as I watched as Sharon sat these women down on the front step of the hotel, spoke to them and comforted them, and calmed them with so much skill. Here she was, the American tourist, lovingly taking care of ex-Israeli army officers. It was really quite something to see. Sharon could talk to anyone. She was interested in everyone and their lives and their children's lives. You could be waiting in line with her, sitting next to her on a plane, washing your hands in a public restroom. She always had a nice word, a compliment. Sharon lived with a painful health condition for years before her cancer diagnosis. Very few people knew how much pain she pushed through to live her passion for building and inspiring the Jewish people. She put on her huge smile and showed up as her best self constantly. She was truly an example of how a person can live way out of their comfort zone when they have clarity of purpose. She was also an incredibly sensitive educator. When Sharon asked a question in class, she was always able to pick out something that somebody said and validate it. That was really special. People felt heard and appreciated. Even if they got it all wrong, she had a way of making them not feel embarrassed or stupid. And when they got it right, she made them feel like $1,000,000. Sharon's greatest love and pride was her family, of course. Her wonderful husband, Rabbi Mati, her 5 amazing children, Aryeh, Leora, Naftali, Bela, and Abraham. She truly cherished the uniqueness and the beauty in each one of them, and every moment she spent with them was precious. Sharon gave herself selflessly to the Jewish people for so many years as a teacher of Torah, an outreach professional, and a compassionate therapist. The number of people whose lives have been transformed by her is staggering. The overflow crowd of hundreds at her funeral spilling out onto the street, plus 1,200 viewers on the Zoom video testify to the magnitude of her impact. Her passing leaves a tremendous hole in our hearts and our community. We have an opportunity to give back. A fund has been established to help Sharon's family in the wake of this tragedy. You have an opportunity to give to lighten the financial loss that Sharon's passing has caused. Momentum is going to be posting a link to the campaign. Please share this with your family and friends. And thank you very much in advance for whatever you can do to help. May all the lessons that Sharon taught and embodied live on through her family, her friends, and students. We were all her students, and we are all so much better, so much more for having known and loved Sharon Shenker.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you so much. Now, I'd like to introduce Momentum's founding director, Lori Palatnik. So Lori is a world-renowned Jewish educator, a speaker, a writer, a media personality. She's lectured all over the world, and she's authored 4 books: Friday Night and Beyond, Gossip, Turn Your Husband into Your Soulmate, and the aforementioned Remember My Soul. She lives with her husband in Jerusalem, where it is now 4 o'clock in the morning. Lori, thank you for getting up so early and being here with us to share your wisdom. Please take it away. Lori needs to be unmuted.
Hi. Thank you so much. Thank you, Adrienne. And thank you, Hannah, for those beautiful, heartfelt words. Really just stunning. I do want to segue a little bit, and we are going to be talking about soul in the afterlife, but I want everybody to remember, and I don't know about you, but I don't think I ever saw Sharon without a smile on her face. She was the most besimcha person. She was full of joy, and no matter what she was going through in life, and we didn't know as much as Hannah was sharing that it wasn't, even though her illness that took her life was more recent, she had health issues, and just like all of us, we have lots of issues, but always with a smile. Our rabbi, was also Sharon's rabbi, Rabbi Noah Weinberg of blessed memory, taught us that happiness is taking pleasure in what you have, and simcha, joy, is knowing there'll be future happiness. So let's get into that zone, because this is not a depressing talk. I hope that this is an inspiring talk, and I hope this is an uplifting talk, and I hope it does bring us simcha. So why did I write my book, Remember My Soul, so many years ago? And as Adrian said, now it's a free audiobook available. We just finished it, really just in time for, and we're launching it just around the Shloshim. Well, it all started when I moved into a neighborhood in Toronto called Forest Hill. And it's a very Jewish neighborhood, not so observant at the time. And we had a neighbor across the street, and we had a mutual friend. And so the neighbor called me up, and she goes, Lori, welcome to the neighborhood, and da da da. She told me about shopping and schools, etc. And then she got to the point. She said, Lori, I was tucking my daughter into bed last night, and her daughter at the time was probably 9 or 10. And my daughter turned to me and she asked me, Mommy, what happens after we die? And she said, Lori, I felt so bad because I had to tell her that according to Judaism, nothing happens after you die. Pause. I said, that's not what we believe at all. She said, really? What do we believe? And I thought, well, maybe this is an isolated incident, but I thought about my own upbringing, and I thought about my family, my friends, and I realized of all the concept of Judaism and the wisdom of Judaism, and there are many misconceptions that Jews have about our own Judaism, I think this is number one, that Jews should believe that nothing happens, according to Judaism, nothing happens after you die. You know why we're confused? Well, I don't know how you were raised, but I was not raised with a strong Jewish background. And so what did I do? My Judaism was kind of, besides, Sunday school, which was a very negative experience, so, which never talked about what we're going to speak about tonight. But whatever non-Jews did, we didn't. That's what I figured. Okay. So they do Christmas, we don't. They do Santa Claus, we don't. They do JC, we don't. They do heaven and hell, we don't. But we do. They changed it. It was from us, but we do. So let's begin at the beginning. If I stood at LAX and I did a survey, people coming off the planes, and I asked them, are you a body or are you a body and a soul? I think most people would say, I'm not just a body. Of course I have a soul. But how many people are real with that? How many people live their life? They're not just bodies, but souls. That's a whole different ballgame. I'm a rabbi's wife. You think I wake up in the morning, I'm a soul, and I go floating through my day? No, I wake up and I'm tired, especially this, we're waking up in the middle of the night. I'm tired, you're hungry, you got to get the kids off to school, and then it's a very body world. We can forget we're souls. But God has a way of reminding us that we're not just bodies, but souls. Sometimes they're amazing, happy moments that wake us up. A star-filled sky, a mountaintop, a beautiful poem or a piece of music that touches our souls. A birth of a baby, an incredible moment. And then there's happy times that wake us up that we're souls. A sickness, a near-death experience, and death itself. Nobody is standing at a funeral thinking, you know what, I forgot to take the chicken out of the freezer. What am I going to make for dinner? Everybody's standing at a funeral thinking, what is life all about? Am I living my life the way I should? What happens after we die? Another reason we don't talk about this is because it's not easy. Because if we don't talk about it, maybe it won't happen. So I don't know about you, but I remember the rabbi when I went twice a year talking about bonds and talking about Israel. Maybe I missed that week, but I don't remember anybody talking about this. It's uncomfortable. So let's draw the curtain open. Let's get comfortable. Because all of us have lost loved ones. And one day we too are going to die. So I started doing research to find out. So I'm going to share with you now. In memory of Sharon, who was so full of life and is now in an afterlife. So apparently our souls don't want to come into this world. Our souls are with God. And God says, this soul, this body, but we don't want to come here. Why? It's not an easy world. It's going to go through the birth canal and somebody's going to slap its tushy and it's going to go through puberty and somebody's going to break up with it in high school. And then you're going to have bills and then you have mortgage and then you're going to have challenges and you're going to raise teenagers. It's not an easy world. I'd rather just live as a soul in all the pleasure, in God's glory. But God says, no, this soul, this body. And apparently, before we come into this world, because now we have no choice, we beg God for certain challenges. Because if we're going to come into this world, give me the challenges that I need and experiences so that I can realize my potential. So sometimes when we're going through challenges, we have to remember, my soul begged for this. Sometimes my husband will come home and say, how was your day? I go, my soul begged for this day. My soul begged for that kid. My soul begged for this. Because it's really through these challenges that we reach down and we become the people that we need to be. Baby's born. Mazel tov, mazel tov. Boy, have a bris, girl, baby naming. And you go through life and you make choices. Life is choice. Sometimes we make the right choices. Sometimes we make the wrong choices. God always gives us an opportunity to make good and to come back and to become better people. I don't know if you've ever been with somebody at the end of their life, when they take their last breath. It's only happened to me twice in my life. And it's a privilege to be in that moment with someone. There are certain laws and customs that you should know. And unfortunately, we don't learn these things until we're in the middle of it. That's why it's good to learn in advance. And one of them, you probably heard this idea that you're not supposed to leave the person who just passed away. You're not supposed to leave them alone. You're supposed to be there until the Chevra Kadisha, the Jewish Burial Society, comes to take them for the next stage, which we'll speak about. A Jew is supposed to be with that person around the clock, actually, until the burial. So you're supposed to stay there. Why? At the moment of death, the soul, the neshama, leaves the body, but stays there. Why? You would think like the soul that didn't want to come into this world, now the soul is released from the body. It'd be hip, hip, hooray, I'm out of here. I'm back with God. Why is the soul still there? Because the soul got attached to the body. We don't believe the body's evil and the soul is good and you battle your whole life. That's a non-Jewish idea. It's not a battle. You're a team. But are you the horse or the rider? Ideally, you want to lead in your choices in life with your soul. If you lead with your soul, your body might kick and scream at the beginning, but eventually you'll fall into line. But if you lead with your body, your soul will never be happy. You know, when you start working out, like you haven't worked out in a long time and, you know, you're out of excuses. And when you first work out, like, how does your body feel? Your body's in pain. Your body is freaking out. Don't do this. We had a good thing going. The next day, your body's in pain again. You keep you drag your body back to the club. After a while, it's a day where it's a packed day and you have an extra carpool and you can't get to the club. Your body now wants it. Your body craves it. But if you go the other way and you join the club and you actually don't go, after a while, when does your soul jump in when you're a couch potato and you're not feeling good and you're looking terrible? When does your soul jump in and go, this is great? Never. If you lead with your soul, your body might kick and scream at the beginning, but eventually will fall in line. But if you lead with your body, your soul will never, ever be happy. So your soul's attached to the body. We needed this body in order to do mitzvahs, in order to help people, in order to achieve in life. We're a team. So the soul is still there. So you're there and you don't leave because you're there to comfort the soul. The Chevra Kadisha does come. And if anybody here has ever served on the Chevra Kadisha, it's people don't do it for the fame and the fortune. They do it as a calling. It's a mitzvah that calls to them. They come and then there's a preparation of the body, knowing that the soul is still there until the burial. So the soul is still there. So it's done with so much sensitivity You should be tremendously comforted to know that that's what the Chevra Kadisha, the Burial Society, does. That there's a cleansing of the body, and again with complete understanding that the soul is there. That the body has sanctity. What we do to our body affects our soul, and so we take tremendous care. Burial is done very quickly. We don't have long waits and wakes. In Israel, you're buried the same day. If you die, the burials can be in the middle of the night. The funeral and the casket. These are things that you should look into again ahead of time, because it's so filled with meaning and purpose. In Israel, there is no casket. You go to the funeral and the person is just wrapped in a shroud. You literally see the outline of their body. It's so real. It's so heavy. Why do we have caskets outside of Israel? Because the law of the king is law, and you have to go along with the laws of the government, but ideally it should be at the simplest casket. And I know that the funeral homes want to talk you into buying something that you really shouldn't buy. But they give you a feeling like, well, if I love them more, I'd spend more money. No. You should know it's the simplest casket, because we want to hasten the process of the person going back to the earth. You came from the earth and you're going back to the earth. Cremation is forbidden. Forbidden. And people who have chosen cremation usually do it because they don't know. They didn't know that it was forbidden. Again, it's something that you should definitely look into ahead of time. And we really want this, I have to tell you that my mother, she should live and be well. She always told us that she wants to be cremated. I want to be cremated and scatter my ashes at the cottage. And so one day she called me up. She goes, okay. I'll rot beside your father, because there's no way my father was going to be cremated. And I said, Mom, 3 out of 4 of your kids are Orthodox Jews. We weren't going to cremate you. We have this idea that this is, for some reason, that this is a better choice, but it really isn't. It's really forbidden. So please look into this more before you would choose such a thing for yourself or your loved one. The burial is sometimes the ceremony or whatever it is that you do is done at the gravesite. Sometimes it's someplace else, and then you go to the gravesite. The earth that is placed on top of the body or the coffin, it's a heavy experience. And sometimes people don't realize how important it is that the community is there to help you bring your loved one through this, and there to hold you up. The actual mourners themselves usually do not traditionally put the earth in. It's really everybody else is there to do that. Once the earth covers the casket, that's when Kaddish is said, because that's when the soul leaves this world. The Kaddish, if you look at it, it doesn't say anything about your loved one. It doesn't say anything about death. It's actually praising God, which seems like, what? At my deepest pain, at my heart is being ripped out of my chest, I'm going to praise God? Yes. Because now your connection to that loved one is through God. When we go through such a heavy experience, there's a part of us that wants to run away from God. We're filled often with anger. How can it be? It's not fair. They're too young. I'm not ready for this. I hear this time and time again, and it's so natural to feel this way. So that's why we proclaim our love for God and in his glory and his greatness. Because ideally, through this experience and what's going to happen with the Shiva and the Shloshim in the year, hopefully we will come closer to God. Shiva begins. Until now, everything has been focused on the person who passed away. Now we shift. Now we shift to the mourners, the direct mourners. And Shiva begins. Shiva is from Shiva 7. If you're driving down any street in North America and you have car trouble, you run out of gas or you have a flat tire, you pull over and you have nothing left in your cell phone, and you have to call the auto club or your spouse, and you see like it's a Jewish neighborhood, and you see there's a lot of people coming in and out of a house. There's a lot of laughter. Something's going on. You figure, I'll go in and I'll ask, can I use the phone? You go in, you're looking, can I use the phone? There's laughter, there's food, if you didn't know you were at a Shiva, what would you think you were at? A party, celebration. Sometimes Shivas have become that. They've become something they're not supposed to be. If you've ever been to a traditional Shiva, and the first time I went to a traditional Shiva, I was so uncomfortable because it was heavy. The mourners were sitting low. Their clothes are torn. They don't look great. There's chairs in front of them. People are sitting. And people are talking about the person who died. And that's what we should be talking about. Not about politics, not about problems with our nanny, not about some of the things that we hear. Traditionally, you're supposed to come when you're paying a Shiva call, and you sit down in front of the mourner, and you know what you're supposed to say? Nothing. Why? Because there's nothing to say. You're supposed to wait for the mourner to speak to you. And ideally, you should speak about the person who passed away. When I was writing my book, Remember My Soul, it's got stories in there of people who've had different losses, and people who even had losses 20 years ago. I asked them, tell me some of the stupid things people said to you when they paid a Shiva call. It was right there. We don't mean to say stupid things, but it's uncomfortable. We don't know what to say. You can't even imagine the things that people said. I'm sure some people here who have gone through this can remember also. People who lost a child said, well, at least you have other children. Really? People who lost a spouse, don't worry, you'll marry again. Oh, and when you're ready, give me a call. I know somebody. Somebody I know whose father died, and he was like very elderly. He was like 89 years old. She said, people kept saying, what? At least he lived a long life. She said, Lori, I felt like standing up and shouting, that's why I'm in so much pain. I loved him for so many years. And you should share stories about them. Again, if the person wants to speak. And it's okay if they cry. You're not there to cheer them up. You're not there to distract them. Going through the pain and going through the process and going through and crying is part of healing. All the tears and all the pain reflect all the love. It's healthy, it's good. Even before I became observant, I knew like, oh, Jews have it all together when it comes to death and mourning. Do you ever go, do you notice like we don't have open caskets? You know, like these, ever go to a non-Jewish funeral where they have this open casket thing? I remember like going to one and like, you wait in line and you go up and you look down and what does everybody say? Oh, she looks good. Because there's a whole makeup thing that happens and they put their clothes on and they're buried with things. We don't do that. We don't try to pretend that they're not dead because they are dead. And my loved one was not a body. It wasn't this physical DNA. The body is temporary. The soul is eternal. The soul never dies. When you look into the eyes of a loved one, you don't think, well, smart monkey who evolved so beautifully, great DNA. No, it's a soul connection. It's a soul connection. And so many things in the Shiva are there to remind you you're not a body, but a soul. That's why we cover the mirrors. You're not supposed to be looking at yourself. You're not supposed to be not just the mourners, but the people who come in. We're supposed to all wake up. We're souls. Wake up. You're a neshama. You're a neshama. You're a soul. And your soul's eternal. And we should be thinking and sharing their incredible qualities. And we want to emulate those qualities. And during the shloshim, during the first 30 days, it says you can access them. You can bring them. And that one of the things I ask people, because I have to tell you, when my father passed away, people said stupid things and people didn't mean to, and people said the wrong things. And I understand that. But somebody said to me, somebody asked me something, and this is what I always ask somebody, whether I'm at the shiva or I call them, please share me one of the great qualities of your father so that I can be a better person. That was the best thing that anybody asked me. And I was able to share that quality. So I get in touch with it. And so I can bring it into life, because you want to live your life differently because they lived and because they died. Because they died, you want to carry on those qualities as their legacy. We should change because they lived, and now because they died. All right. So Shiva ends, and let's go back to, where did the soul go? The soul left this world. Remember, we talked about it. And the soul, there's two places they go, heaven or hell. Yes, 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 we believe in that. Let's do hell first and get it over with. So first of all, it's called Gehenna, and it's not pitchforks and devils, and the most you can be there is a Jewish year. So if you take what is Gehenna? Gehenna is a hospital for the soul. You don't want to check in. And if you do, it's not going to be pretty. But just like a hospital, you don't want to check in. And if you do, it's going to be awful. But thank God it's there if you need it. What does it mean, a hospital for a soul? Remember, we talked about that you make choices in life, and sometimes you make the wrong choices, and hopefully you make good. Well, if you didn't make good, you have to take care. You didn't take care of it here. You got to take care of it there. But it's out of God's chesed, it's out of God's love and kindness, that if you didn't take care of your mistakes here, you can take care of it there. So you think it's going to be hard here to say, I'm sorry, to say, I forgive? It's going to be much harder there. I asked our rabbi, so what is it? If it's not pitchforks and devils, what is it? He said, it's a world of shame. I was like, oh, okay. He goes, no, Lori, shame. Have you ever felt shame in life? Have you ever done something that you're ashamed of? That pain, you want to die. Like what's the shame? What I could have been, what I could have done, what I should have been, what I should have done, what I would have been, what I would have done. Because apparently we want to go back. Not just go back to live, go back to clear up mistakes. Now that I'm aware, so this world is called Olam HaSheker, a world of falsehood. What we think is important here, being rich, being thin, being famous. The next world is Olam HaEmet, a world of truth. We see what's important in life. Ideally, we should come to that here. And again, when we experience pain and suffering and challenge and death of a loved one, sometimes it wakes us up to what's important in life. Do you ever go through something, whether it's a divorce or you lose your money or you lose your fame, and suddenly you find out who your real friends are? To live a life of falsehood, it's no life. You really want to know who your friends are. You really want to live a life of truth. But it's very hard here. It's very confusing here. And we can buy into what the media says, what society says, and it's hard. But in the next world, the curtain is lifted and all our eyes are open. And we want to go back. I'll try harder. I'll learn more. I'll say, I'm sorry. I'll say, I forgive. It's too late. And that's painful. One of the things that it's very heavy. Apparently, we're going to be shown what our life could have been if we had had the courage, if we had not bought into some of the things that distract us in life, if we had gone that extra mile, if we really had realized our potential. Can you imagine That's what it could have been. Those are the people I could have affected. That's what I could have done in the world. So you can bypass Gehenna by taking care of your mistakes and realizing your potential here. You could be there for a second, but the most you can be there is for a Jewish year. And that's why we say Kaddish for a parent for 11 months, because we can never imagine that the person that we're saying Kaddish for would need that merit for an entire year. So hopefully we bypass it, or we're there for a second, or we learn whatever we need to learn, and we go through what we need to go, and then we go on to heaven. As much as Gehenna is an unbelievable, unbelievable world of pain, soul-filled pain, heaven is pleasure. Unbelievable. We can't even imagine the pleasure. If you take all the pleasures that you've ever had in your life, whether it's this vacation, this falling in love, everything, smash it all together, it's not 1 millisecond of the pleasure you're going to have in the next world. So what's the pleasure? I went on vacation. I had fun. I ate chocolate ice cream. Yum, yum, yum. Okay. What? Like I did something. I had pleasure. What am I doing and having to get pleasure? You're not doing anything. It's soul-filled pleasure. So what's going on in heaven? I'm not doing anything. It's soul-filled pleasure. So what does that mean, soul-filled? I'm basking in the unbelievable pleasure of the choices I made in this world. Why? Because the choices I made in this world either bring me closer to my creator or farther away. The ultimate pleasure, remember we talked about pleasures of falling in love or having a baby or a star-filled sky. It's a brush with eternity. It's a brush with God. The ultimate pleasure would be being in God's presence. The best analogy I was given, which I'm going to share with you, is that heaven is like a theater. And it says every Jew who does even one mitzvah, l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, has a seat in the theater. God's center stage. You want to be close as possible. So imagine I live my life. I hope I make good choices to 120, as they say, and it's my time. And I'm go to heaven. Hopefully I bypass Gehenna. And the angel says, oh, L20, Lori Palatnik, L20, here you are. Not so close, not so far. Is that where I am for eternity? Could be, doesn't have to be. How can my seat change? When people who come after us, children, students, when they do things like we're doing today for Sharon, if they do things because you lived and because you died, that's merit to your soul. You move up rows, so to speak. You get greater pleasure in the next world. The soul in the next world, they don't know the weather report today, but they know when mitzvahs happen because they're moving up. They come to the chuppahs, they come to the bar mitzvah and the bat mitzvah. The souls come to, and they're attracted to when their mitzvahs happen, when a baby is named after them, when you dedicate a book in their memory, when you give tzedakah, when you take on a mitzvah. That is merit to and you're doing it in their memory. It's merit to their soul. Sharon, she's dancing now. She's dancing. Because look at all of you, hundreds of you, remembering her and learning about this in her memory. Is that it? No, there's something else. First of all, as I said, we believe in reincarnation. Yes, we do. What does that mean? It means if you didn't get it right in this world, you got to come back and do it again. Does anybody here want to be a teenager again? Would anybody here ever want to go through like that again? I only know one guy who said, yeah, it was the best years of my life. Okay, well, good luck with that. Who would want to do it again? You actually want to complete your mission here and go on to the soul-filled. What does it mean, soul-filled pleasure? You know the term nachas? Do you ever try to translate that to your housekeeper, like nachos? Okay, like nachas, like what's nachas? Oh, it's happiness. Oh, it's pleasure, or it's more, but it's greater, but it's.
Do you ever have a kid who does a kindness for somebody and they didn't tell you, and you find out from somebody else? You get that soul-filled pleasure. What would you trade that for? That nachas. It's priceless. That's what's going on in the next world. It's soul-filled pleasure. It's all nachas. And again, it's based on the choices that you made here. So coming back again is not a positive thing. It means you didn't get it right. And that's why sometimes you don't come back. You only have to come back for a little bit, for just a minute, a few years. You don't know. One of the things I went to a funeral recently, and the woman she was my age. And people kept saying that her loved ones, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. First of all, that's not going to bring you any comfort. And it's really denying the existence of God. Do you know in Hebrew, there's no such word as fair? They actually say zelo fair. Because God has a plan. Sometimes being married to a rabbi comes in handy. It was many years ago in Toronto, there was somebody young and they were suffering and people were praying. And I asked my husband about this whole concept. So he explained to me like this. I hope this resonates with you because it really resonated with me. He says, when we come into this world, we're given little backpacks. And the backpacks have a number on the back. Some say 7, some say 37, some say 107. That's the number of years that God assigned this soul. But the number can change. It's clear in the Torah that years can be added to a person's life or taken away for whatever reason. So we don't know the original number. So if you go to somebody's shiva and the person died and they were 87, you go, oh, at least they lived a long life. Maybe they had 107 on their backpack. And you go to the shiva of somebody who was 37, you go, oh, he died so young. Maybe he had 7 on his backpack. And for whatever reason, God gave him more years. We don't know. What do we know? Right now, all of us here, we're alive. God gave us more time. Every day is a gift. There's no guarantee. That's why we say Shema at night, because maybe we won't wake up. And that's why we say Modeh Ani Lefanecha when we wake up. Well, thank you, God, for restoring my soul. It says a portion of our soul actually leaves in the night. And then God gives it back to us, and we have this journey, and then God gives it back to us in the morning. And that's why we were supposed to traditionally wash our hands 3 times in the morning. Why? Because just like after going to a funeral or somebody dealing the Chevra Kadisha, when we have a brush with death, we go back to life, and that's water. Water's life. What I shared with you, and we're going to deal with questions now. Chances are it's not going to change the way we die, but hopefully, if you're real about it and you learn more about it, hopefully it will change the way we live.
Lori, there are a lot of questions, and these aren't even my questions. That was extraordinary, as you are extraordinary. Let's see if we can get through some of these questions.
Sure.
There's a certain irony here. These are the kind of questions that Sharon really answered well. I have to tell you, I think she's probably getting nachas from what you're saying and doing in her merit. So the first thing I think we have to ask is a lot of questions about cremation. So why is cremation forbidden?
So if you look at the Torah, that the first being, Adam, was created from earth. that we were created from earth. A woman is actually created from that being. That first being was an androgynous being, male and female both, and we were created from that live being. And you see in creation that everything gets greater, and there is a very and more godlike. We came from the earth. We're supposed to go back to the earth. And again, the body has sanctity. The body houses. I remember I had a housekeeper years ago in Toronto, and I remember she was Indian, and she said that one day she said to me, she goes, "I have to leave because my mother died in India, and if a loved one doesn't claim the body, they throw you in the garbage." I'm like, what? What? Like what? Again, we don't believe the body's evil. The body houses the soul. And so the idea, and you have to understand, if you look into cremation, you think it's just like, oh, they burn it and it becomes ashes. They have to pound the bones, okay? Like in order to get it to be that dust. And after the Holocaust, when people were put into ovens to choose cremation, again, people are not choosing cremation because they know, they don't know that this is really, really, really forbidden in Jewish law. And just
Lori,
like
I just want to tell you that, somebody else wrote, how do you explain to your parents who want to be cremated that they shouldn't? And it's very upsetting because it's not your wish. And I think intrinsic in this question as well is, are you allowed to override their wishes? You said to your mother, oh, we're not going to cremate you anyway. But I know a lot of people who say, how can I disregard my parents' wishes? Can you speak to that?
Thank you so much for asking that. Remember I said this world is Olam HaSheker and the next world is Olam HaEmes? Mm-hmm. So what I've sat down with so many parents talking about this, because people say, I don't want to use up the world, and I don't want to use up beings, and I don't want to when they go to the next world, then they know. And they're begging and they're screaming out from heaven, don't don't do that to the next loved one. I know you didn't do it because you knew. You did it because you didn't know. But please.
Wow.
There was somebody, I remember in Toronto, I was, I was walking in my neighborhood, and I met a neighbor, and he's mowing the lawn. And I introduced him. Hi, who do this? My kids, and he told me that his father died 3 days before. And I was like, well, and he's standing mowing the lawn. He goes, and I said, you're not sitting Shiva? He said, no, my father told us, no, nobody sits Shiva when I die. Now, I don't believe in any of that stuff. I said to him, your father is crying out from heaven. Please, it's merit to me. Please do that. So the idea that you listen to your parents, of course, we're supposed to honor our parents, and we're told, kibbud av v'em. It's one of the 10 commandments, unless they tell you to break the Torah.
So somebody just asked, what if my mother wants to donate her body for science?
Okay, be very careful. There's certain things that you're allowed to do. Like, I don't know if some of you realize, like I had the unbelievable privilege of donating my kidney to a woman 10 years ago. And, oh no, not 10 years ago. Oh my gosh. I think maybe 14 years ago, I donated my kidney, and it was the greatest experience of my life. I was allowed to give somebody life, but not killing myself. Okay. Like, there's certain things you're allowed to give. And there's certain things even after death that you're allowed to give, but there's certain things you're not. And again, you can't take another life in order to give life. Even if you're brain dead, you're still not dead. But in terms of science, no, that you're supposed. Have you ever seen Have you ever seen in terms of when people would go through terrorist things happen in Israel, and there are people who come, there's a society that comes in, every piece of skin, every nail, everything is gathered and everything is buried. Everything has sanctity. So you should ask. You should ask what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. There's certain things that not only are you allowed to, you should do if you can help people in life, but in terms of science, and they're going to cut up your loved one's body and do things, you should ask once, twice, and 3 times before making that decision.
Okay, can I keep going? There's a lot.
Yeah, go.
Okay, I'll give you an easier one now, and then I'm going to give you a really hard one, which I'm dying to hear the answer to.
Jeez, you're
Can
dying. Thank you,
the
Adrian.
wife of a Cohen go into a cemetery?
The wife of, yes, a wife of a Cohen can go into a cemetery.
Okay.
But a
thank you.
Cohen themselves are only allowed to go to a cemetery because the Cohen is the conduit between heaven and earth, and they do the Birkat HaKohanim, that there's certain things they're not allowed to do, and going, again, always choosing life, and they're not allowed to, unless it's a direct, a person that there will be a direct mourner to, they're not allowed to go to a cemetery.
Wow. Okay, here's one. Do the challenges that we choose relate to other lives that we may have had lived in the past, in which we feel we did not rise to a particular challenge? I think basically what she's saying here is do we keep getting the same do we get the kind of issues that speak to unresolved character issues in past lives?
This is a big yes. Now, when I say reincarnation, you can come back as a different gender, a different religion. You can come back as an animal. You could even come back as an inanimate object, which I don't understand. But I once had somebody come to our Shabbat table, and they said they can't. I kept inviting her, and she kept, oh, I can't go. And one time, so she finally said, I said, why aren't you coming to me for Shabbat? She goes, I don't want to leave my dog. I go, bring your dog. Okay, so this is what happened. Adrian, she showed up with her dog. Her dog had a kippah on and a little talus, okay? And it was a little tiny dog, okay? So I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. You know, my husband's a rabbi. So everybody sits down. This is what the kids, we had other guests there, and their kids were like wild animals. This dog, I'm telling you, it's called a gilgul, like a reincarnated soul. My husband would make kiddush, the dog was like this. My husband would give it to our Torah, the dog was like this, okay? So I remember going into the kitchen, and my husband was there, and I was like apologetic. I said, Yaakov, I'm so sorry. He goes, no, I just want to know if he's going to make the minyan tomorrow, okay? So this was, and some of you have had dogs or cats that are literally, this is not normal, okay? Some dogs are just bow, wow, wow, and some dogs, this is not normal, okay? Did you ever have a child who's an old soul? Like, you know, like this, they've been here before. Like this, they have a wisdom, even from birth, that you see it in their face, like something, and they're looking around, something's going on here. So this neshama, like you see, like can come back. And if you didn't get it right, that means that you have to get it right with different players, but it might be the same lesson, but in a different way. So it could be that your husband in a former life was your kid, or was a parent, or maybe your mother-in-law was your sister, and now they're coming back in different forms. So let's try to get it right the first time and not have to relive that. But if you have lessons are coming at you, learn the lessons. And again, better to learn it here and make it good in this world, and don't bring it to the next.
Holy. Well, so somebody wrote, do animals have souls? My understanding is they are different kinds of souls.
Yeah, they have animal souls.
Right. But if I come back as a dog, then I only have the animal component of my soul. It's not like there I am in that dog.
Well, yes and no. It's very metaphysical. It's wild stuff. All right. I'm not saying I'm an expert or I understand it completely, but if you come back, it's not exactly the same soul. It's like Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg of blessed memory, the older brother of our rabbi, explained it that it's like a candle that lights another flame. It's a reflection of that soul. It's not exactly that soul, and it doesn't take away from the original soul, but it is a reflection.
Okay. So can a neshama still be present after burial, shiva, and shloshim? Is it permitted to be around its loved ones? Is it possible for a loved one to feel the presence of someone who passed?
Yes. And first of all, some of you might know the difference between dreaming about your loved one or they come to you in a dream. And I don't know if any of you have ever had this experience, but my father, a few months after his passing, came to me in a dream. I'm not going to share the dream with you now. I'm happy to share with you another time, but he came to me in a dream. And there are times where people say they smell the perfume of their loved one, or they feel the presence of their loved one. So again, what's going on in your life that their presence is? And at their yard site, we light a candle. What's going on with the candle? Why are we lighting candles? And that non-Jews got this from us, okay? That the candle, the flame is like a neshama, like a soul. Why? Because if you turn that candle over, it keeps going up, like the flame goes up, just like our soul is yearning up. And so and they're attracted to that, and that's why we have a candle burning throughout the whole Shiva. They're there very close in the Shiva, but there are times where you feel their presence. They come to you in a dream, or you feel their presence. It's real. It's very real, but we're not supposed to try to make it happen. This is very important. There are several commandments in the Torah that forbid you from going to a seance or a crystal ball person or a person who can bring souls into this world, not just because most of them are going to cheat you, but because some of them can actually do it. And you're not supposed to draw them back, that you're supposed to let them go onto the next world. And there are times where they'll come visit you, so to speak, and you'll feel their presence, again, especially when mitzvahs happen in this world, but you're not supposed to, it's almost selfish to do it. I'm sorry to say, because you want to feel their presence and you want to connect to them, but that's really, if you want to do what's best for them, you have to let them go.
Lori, there are so many more questions. Would you consider, let's do a poll. Would you consider doing a part 2 of this with a lot of questions and answers? I think we're putting it up as a poll right now. I'd like everybody to take the poll because, like I said, every time you answer a question, 5 more popped up, and one just came up about ghosts, and I'm dying to hear about that too. Pardon my pun.
Okay, so I'm very, very happy to do a part 2. We didn't even got to like, who are you with in the next world? Like, because there's a whole thing like, are you alone or you're just in this theater? But no, there's a whole thing about who you're with and what there's so much to share. And right now it's just after 5 o'clock in the morning in Israel, and I probably will go back to sleep, but I don't know if I can sleep after this. I have to say, I just want to say, first of all, I want to thank you for the privilege and the honor of sharing this with you in memory of Sharon. Whenever I think of Sharon, and again, there's a part of us that is in so much pain, I really do, I smile, because she lived her life b'simcha. And as I said at the beginning, that happiness is taking pleasure in what you have. And simcha is knowing there'll be future happiness. I'm so happy that I was able to have this moment to share it with you. But even our rabbi said, even in our greatest pain, even we're at the cemetery, even when we're sitting Shiva, that we always have to have one track on simcha, knowing there'll be future happiness. And he said, if the Jewish people did not live this and always have one track on simcha, that the greatest day for the Jewish people is just around the corner, we would have given up a long time ago. So no matter what you're going through in life, Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. You should live your life and with joy. God doesn't need a bunch of miserable people doing his mitzvahs. And it says at one point we were punished in the desert, not because we didn't serve God, because we didn't serve him b'simcha. Do you ever ask one of your kids to take out the garbage? They're like, forget it, I'll do it myself. God doesn't need you to be a miserable person carrying out what he wants in this world. He wants you to have pleasure, the deepest pleasure. And in the scheme of our eternity, this world is a blip. What happens in that blip will affect all of our eternity. So choose wisely.
Oh, Lori, thank you. And my friends, you know that one of Momentum's goals is to connect with Jewish values. And it's our hope that this was as enlightening and informative for you. And in the merit of our dearest, beloved Sharon, may her soul, may her holy neshama be elevated, have an aliyah. And don't forget, check out remembermysoul.org, and then you can learn more about this soul in the afterlife. And please look in the chat, and don't forget to donate to Sharon's fund at the link that you're going to see right in the chat. I found this extraordinary. There just are no words. Sharon, if your soul can hear this, we loved you. We're grateful to you and for you. And we will all attempt to live with the simcha and the clarity and the meaning that you imbued in this world, in your life. God bless everybody, and good night.